My wife's name was in the Emperor. She was a renowned seraphil of the ascended path, and I was just a hunter. The day she left, she told me I was nothing more than a trial she had to endure, a karmic debt to be paid on her path to ascension. Then she took our son and walked away with a man she called her savior. Once I handed over the day's haul to Walt, the traveling merchant who came through Havenwood twice a month. My reward was a heavy string of silver coins. He ran a hand over the glossy pelt of the mountain cat, clicking his tongue in appreciation, and threw the left eye out through the right without so much as a nick on the hide. Ethan, in a 100 m radius, there's no one who can touch you with a bow. I carefully tucked the coins into an inner pocket of my jacket. You'd think that kind of praise would come with a bonus. He shot me a grin, his eyebrows raised. Brother, you're about to join the celestial elite. What's a man like you care about worldly things anymore? Once takes you to the Emperor, you'll be living a life of ease. The woman he mentioned was my wife. We met by chance. A dire wolf had her cornered, and I put an arrow through its throat, risking my own life to save hers. Overcome with gratitude, she married me. Soon after, our son Leo was born. It was only a few days ago that I learned the truth. She was a celestial being from a higher realm, a figure of immense power and reputation. Now that her trial of mortal love was complete, a delegation from her order was coming to escort her home. That was the day she announced to the whole town that she would be taking 2 people back with her. Everyone assumed she meant me and our son. In my first life, I believed that, too. But this time, I knew better. My name wasn't on that list. 2 in my past life. The 2 she took with her were Leo, our son, and Julian Croft, the man who had healed her from mysterious illness, her supposed savior. I was the one left behind, forgotten. Before she left, she told me, Ethan, I descended to this world with my powers sealed to face a karmic trial of the heart. You were the man fate chose for me. Though we are husband and wife, the chasm between celestial and mortal is too great. But don't worry, when I have time, I'll bring Leo back to visit. I accepted her words in silence, clinging to the hope that our family would one day be whole again. I waited for years, never leaving our home, afraid they would return and not be able to find me. I waited as my hair turned to silver and my back began to stoop. I died alone in that bed, waiting. This time I had no such illusions. She said I was her trial. Fina, the trial is over. We'll go our separate ways. 3. I squeezed the pouch of coins in my pocket, feeling the satisfying weight of my savings, and bid Walt farewell. Take care. Maybe I'll see you around. Thinking I was heading off to a better life in the Emporian, he waved me off with a wide smile. Once you're up there, brother, it'll be a long shot we see each other again. Good luck. I didn't say anything. I was leaving. That much was true, but I wasn't going to any Emperor. It's a big world. There had to be a place in it for me. I had no desire to see Yila and her precious savior again. This time I would be the one to leave first. Our house was at the far western edge of town, the nicest place in Havenwood with a small, well-tended yard. In her eyes, though it was probably less impressive than a storage shed in the Empyrean. I heard laughter before I even reached the gate. In the yard, our son Leo was trying to levitate on a gleaming ethereal sword. His face was beet red with effort, but he could only manage a few wobbly seconds before tumbling off. Leo whined. My wife frowned slightly, then flicked her wrist. The sword instantly stabilized. So, her powers are back. I thought. She was always beautiful with a cool aristocratic air. Now, with her abilities restored, every gesture she made was imbued with the grace of a celestial being. No, she was a celestial being. I was just the dust that had settled on her. Standing off to the side was the man she considered her savior, Julian Croft. He was far more attentive to Leo than she ever was, constantly reminding him to be careful. The concern on his face was so genuine, you'd think he was the boy's real father. He was a doctor, but he had the refined, scholarly air of a man from a wealthy, influential family. Charming and debonair. Then I looked at myself, skin-tanned and weathered from sun with a hunter's broad, rough build. Years in the wilderness had given me a wild edge. No wonder she and our son felt closer to Julian. Looking at them, they made a much more picturesque family. I imagine that's how they lived in the Emperor in my past life. A happy, perfect trio. A surprised voice cut through my thoughts. Ethan, you're back early today. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes before she regained her usual cool composure. I didn't answer in my last life. I come home late and never knew Julian had been there. They certainly never mentioned it. 5. I lower my head and walk toward the house. Seeing me ignore her, she grabbed my sleeve as I passed. My hands were calloused and rough. She rarely touched me if she could help it. Why aren't you speaking? She asked, her voice tinged with impatience. Julian is here. He came to see Leo. I pulled my sleeve from her grasp. I know. Perhaps my indifferent tone annoyed her. Her elegant brows knitted together and a chill entered her eyes. Leo ran over. Dad, Julian is still here. Why are you acting like this? The kid was young, but he was already perfectly in sync with his mother. They say sons are like their mothers. He didn't just look like her. He thought like her and he liked the same people just like his mother. He was ready to forget he had a mortal father, ready to accept living with his Uncle Julian. She was cold, but Leo was even more so. I shot him a glare. I'd never done that before. I was always so distant that I had to be the warm, doting parent. The glare sent a shock through him. His face went pale and he turned and ran straight to Julian. Uncle Julian. Dad's being mean to me. He whimpered. Can you take me away from here? Julian knelt, stroking his hair. Your father is just teasing you, Leo. Don't be scared, he said smoothly. Come on, let's go into town. I'll buy you a treat. Leo cheered up instantly. Yeah, let's go. And Mom can come, too. Just the three of us. I didn't care if the three of them left together. It was nothing I hadn't weathered before. From now on, I was living for myself. Just as I was packing a small bag, she walked in. What is wrong with you today? She demanded. Is it because of Julian? He was only here to see Leo. Why are you being so petty? I turned to look at her at the undisguised irritation on her face. What's the matter? Weren't you going with him? That remark finally broke her composure. Ethan, Julian saved my life when I was on the brink of death. He was the one who pulled me back. She snapped. Why must you be so small-minded? You disappoint me. How could the man I married be so graceless? With that, she turned and swept out of the room. She seemed to have forgotten. Yes, Julian may have pulled her back from the brink, but I was the one who pulled her from the jaws of a wolf. I was the one who carried her limping down the mountain. And I was the one who risked my life scaling a cliff face to get the herbs she needed. She once told me she was only taking Julian to the Emperor to repay her debt to him. But in the end, it was just me she was dissatisfied with. Today I was small-minded. Tomorrow it will be something else. In my past life, Leo looked down on me too. Dad, the creatures in the Emperoran are celestial beasts. You can't just hunt them, he'd said. Besides, you don't look like you belong in the order. None of that mattered anymore. It was perfect, really. With them gone, I could finish packing in peace with no explanations needed. 7. They came back late. Julian walked Leo all the way to the gate, only leaving after Leo's reluctant goodbyes. Leo went straight to his room and slammed the door, clearly still angry with me. I had no time for his moods. I was busy planning my escape. She was as cold as ever. With an attitude like yours, you'll only cause trouble if you come back to the order, she said, her voice flat. I made my decision. I'm taking Leo and Julian. As for you, you brought this on yourself. Don't blame me. A bitter laugh escaped me. It's your decision to make. You're a celestial being now with all your powers restored. I'm just mortal. I wouldn't dare blame you. I'm terrified you might just wave your hand and erase me from existence. I turned my back to her, lay down on the cot fully clothed, and closed my eyes, ignoring her reaction. Deep down, I was disappointed. I wished I'd been reborn on the day I first met her, as the wolf closed in. I would have walked away and let the beast have its meal. Maybe then everything would have been different. 8. Perhaps it was my uncharacteristic behavior. But over the next few days, she actually tried to explain herself. Ethan, if you could just be more open-minded, I could find a way to bring you to the Empyrean later, she offered one morning, her tone softer than it had been in years. Then our family of 3 could be together again. Trust me, we are after all husband and wife. I focused on my own tasks, just nodding vaguely to show I heard her. I didn't believe a single word. Her promises were more deceptive than a demon's whisper. Seeing my dismissive attitude, she finally let out a soft sigh and walked away. 9. Today was the day she was leaving with Leo and Julian. I was up before sunrise. Not for them. Today was the day I was leaving, too. To my surprise, Julian was already there. When he saw me with my bow on my back and a pack slung over my shoulder, he approached with a polite bow. Heading into the mountains for a hunt, Ethan. I stood taller than him and looked down at him with a sideways glance. She and the boy aren't here. You can drop the act. Don't you find it disgusting? Julian Croft was no saint. He was a completely different person in front of me than he was with her. I told him once, point blank, You're an outsider, so don't even think about coming between me and my family. He'd agreed, feigning humility, but then immediately, accidentally let her know what I'd said. I was so furious, I beat him bloody. That, of course, enraged her and Leo. They accused me of being a violent brute, of not seeing the good in people, of hurting the one they cared about. But I still remember the ugly sneer on Julian's face that day. The one who isn't loved, he'd whispered. That's the outsider. Now I understood. He was right. I was the outsider. 10. My dear Ethan, this is simply who I am, Julian said. Now, a faint smug smile on his lips, his eyes filled with unconcealed mockery. And it's a persona she and Leo happen to adore. Before I could reply, her voice came from behind us. What are you two talking about? I didn't answer. She stepped between us, turning to face me and subtly shielding Julian behind her. Leo was awake now, too. He rubbed his eyes and greeted Julian cheerfully, then turned his face away when he saw me. Nothing, my dear, Julian said smoothly, his lies flowing like water. Ethan was just feeling a bit sentimental about your departure. He was giving me some pointers on things to watch out for. After all, once he's not around, someone has to take care of you, too. Hearing this, a look of guilt crossed her face. Ethan, if only you'd been like this sooner, she murmured. Don't worry. Once I'm settled back with the order, I'll find a way to bring you up. It won't be long. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I just turned to leave, but she noticed my pack. She moved in a blur, blocking my path. A hint of panic in her voice. Wait, where you going? Why do you have a pack? I calmly borrowed a page from Julian's book. I'm going deeper into the mountains. I'll have more game. Get some extra silver for you. You might need it. Behind her, Leo muttered. They used celestial crystals in the Empyrean. Not mortal currency. He thought I was being a fool again, that I didn't understand their world. Just a mortal. Just a hunter. I didn't care. It was just an excuse to get away. She seemed stunned for a moment. Then she spoke softly. Come back soon. We'll be leaving in a little while. It doesn't matter if you get any silver or not. Just come back. Come back. Come back for what? To watch the two of you ride off into the sunset. I took one last look over my shoulder. The three of them were in the yard talking happily, planning their wonderful future. Ahead of me, the morning sun was breaking over the mountains. The breeze was gentle and the birds were singing. At that moment, I too had passed my karmic trial. I was finally walking my own path. 11, at first, she just waited at the house. As the hours passed, she grew restless and walked to the edge of town. Her gaze fixed on the road where Ethan should have appeared. But the familiar, steady silhouette never came. The appointed time for departure grew near. Leo, practically bouncing with impatience, ran to her side. Mom, it's almost time. We have to go. An unfamiliar anxiety set in, her tone was sharp. What's the rush? We'll wait for your father. Leo flinched. He had always been afraid of defying his mother and could only mutter. But when is he coming back? What if? What if he already left? That last sentence struck a raw nerve. A glare so fierce it was as if he had uttered some great blasphemy. Your father is just running late. He'll be back, she said, as much to convince herself as to reassure her son. Soon Julian arrived. Lady, shouldn't we be on our way? A little longer. She seemed determined to wait for Ethan. Lady, Julian said gently, I think Ethan might be avoiding us on purpose. Perhaps he's waiting for us to leave before he returns. His words made her hesitate. Her slender fingers tightened on the fabric of her sleeve. For the first time, she understood how agonizing it was to wait. In the past, no matter where she went, Ethan had always been there. He worried and insisted on accompanying her. When she finally got annoyed and told him to stop, he'd started waiting for her on the road home instead. No matter how late, she would always see his tall, solid figure at the gate or at the edge of town, a silent, dependable sentinel. She used to chide him for his lack of ambition, for being content to just watch over her and their son. With his skills, he could have made a name for himself. Ethan would never argue. He'd just scratch the back of his neck and grin. I used to be on my own, you see. I didn't have much to care about, but now I have you and Leo. You give me something to care about, so I'm always thinking of you. Over time, she had gotten used to it. Until today, when the one who waited and the one being waited for had switched places, and now she couldn't find him. 12, is he angry with me? She whispered the words to herself. Maybe he'll understand when he comes back. Her karmic trial was over. The purpose of her descent into the mortal realm was achieved. By all rights, their connection should be severed. The gulf between celestial and mortal was absolute. It was time to part. Her own path of ascension was far from over, and countless other trials awaited her. She sighed softly. Let's go. We're returning to the Order. Leo's face lit up with pure joy. But before leaving, she leaped from the levitating sword and left a letter on the table inside their house. She carefully placed a protective ward around it, a spell ensuring that only Ethan could open it. In bold, clear script, she wrote, "For my husband, Ethan Cole." If Julian was right, Ethan would return as soon as they were gone. He would see it immediately. I promised Ethan I would bring him to the Empire one day, she explained to Julian and Leo, though it felt more like she was explaining it to herself. When he comes home, he can wait in peace. I will come back for him. With that, the three of them journeyed back to the Emperor. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Her anxiety only grew. She could sense that the ward she'd left on the letter remained unbroken, which meant Ethan had never opened it. Has he not returned? Did something happen to him? No. That's impossible. He must be refusing to read it. The thoughts spun endlessly in her mind. She couldn't focus, couldn't meditate. Her powers stagnated. To make matters worse, Leo had started constantly asking to see his father, just like now. Julian had come to her, a weary look on his face, asking her to come and calm their son down. Today's tantrum was especially bad. 13. She walked in to see Leo sweeping his dinner, a tray of food prepared by the Order's acolytes, onto the floor. Stop it. What are you doing? Mom, I had a dream about Dad. She was never one to spoil a child. But when Leo looked up at her, his eyes red and brimming with tears, her heart softened. For a fleeting moment, she saw Ethan's shadow in him. The boy had her features, yes, but his brow and set of his eyes were Ethan's through and through. Of course, if Ethan had been an ugly man, how could they have had such a handsome son? She remembered when she first arrived in the mortal realm, powerless and vulnerable, a great dire wolf, ancient and cunning, had sensed her celestial energy. It knew that consuming her would grant it immense power. But with her abilities sealed for the trial, she couldn't even defend herself. Wounded and cornered, she was at the verge of death. Then came the sharp whistle of an arrow, slicing through the air and burying itself in the wolf's throat. Faint from blood loss, all she could see was the towering silhouette of the hunter who had saved her. His name was Ethan Cole. He was her karmic trial. Ethan carried her back to his home and nursed her back to health. As she recovered, she watched him. He was a big, powerful man, but he was anything but clumsy. He was gentle, attentive, and knew how to care for someone. She was pleased. At the very least, he didn't repulse her, and so using his act of saving her as the reason, she married him. Before the wedding, the town elder had told her about him. Ethan was an orphan, a foundling who had been raised by the entire village. He never knew his parents. That was why over time he took the simple name Ethan Cole. But being an orphan didn't mean he lacked character. He was a good man, hardworking, kind, and possessed a quiet courage most men lacked. Marrying him would be a good choice. And it was true. After they married, he treated her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Especially after Leo was born, he worked from dawn until dusk, yet always seemed happy. It was during those years that Ethan's rugged features grew more weathered, and he let his appearance go a little. From a dusty corner of her memory, she found a forgotten image. Ethan was actually handsome. On their wedding day, there was no fancy carriage. Amid the cheers of the townspeople, Ethan had scooped her up into his arms. The veil she wore was thin, and their faces were so close she could feel the warmth of his skin, hear the beat of his heart. She could see his strong brow, his sharp, clear eyes. In that moment, her own hands had wrapped around his neck. Her heart had fluttered. She willingly fell into her trial of love. That night, she had wanted him. Mom. Leo's voice pulled her back to the present. Mom, the food here is awful. It's not as good as the roasted quail Dad used to make me. And Dad used to carve me wooden swords and take me exploring. The elders here are mean. When are we going home? To find Dad. Leo ran to her, looking up with pleading eyes. She stood in silence, unsure how to answer him. All right, she said finally. If you stop throwing tantrums and do the lessons the elders assign you every day, I will take you to find him. Leo's eyes lit up as if he'd just seen a miracle. Promise, Mom. I promise. And so Leo, who had inherited his mother's gift for cultivation, excelled in the Order's junior trials. As a reward, he was granted leave. Mother and son traveled through the night, returning to their old home, only to be greeted by a house shrouded in dust. And a letter addressed to her husband that had never been opened. 14. After leaving Havenwood, I walked east, chasing the sunrise. The journey wasn't without incident. I came across a band of highwaymen attacking a family on the road. The driver and their guards were already dead. The bandits were dragging a woman and a young girl into the woods. Their leader, a brute with a scarred face, told me to leave my money, and he'd let me live. By the time my fourth arrow found its mark, taking him and 3 of his men down, the rest scattered into the forest. The family, saved from a terrible fate, was eternally grateful. The father, an older, distinguished man, thanked me profusely and begged me to escort them to the nearby Riverbend city, promising a generous reward. With nowhere else to be, I agreed. Once they were safe within the city walls, I slipped away. In times like these, a family that's been robbed blind has better things to spend their money on than rewarding a stranger. Riverbend was a massive city stretching as far as the eye could see. It was also a city where it was hard for a man like me to find honest work. After a few weeks of odd jobs, I was sought out by men who worked for the governor. It turned out the older man I had rescued was him. And just like that, I was made sheriff of the county, a position of authority in charge of the local garrison responsible for keeping the peace. With a new title came a new home. Soon enough, people started asking about my past, trying to set me up with a wife. No parents, no wife, no children was always my answer. It was close enough to the truth. In both my lives, my wife and son were gone, and I'd never know my parents. I was utterly alone. But this time, I wouldn't wait in an empty house for the rest of my life. She and Leo were no longer the chains around my heart. I had found my own purpose, a life that wasn't defined by anyone else. Nearly a year passed. One day, I was leading my men on the usual patrol. One of my deputies leaned in and muttered that we were being followed. I glanced over my shoulder. A woman and a boy. The woman was ethereally beautiful, like she didn't belong in the mortal world. The boy, though young, already had a handsome, noble bearing. It was her and Leo. What were they doing here? Weren't they supposed to be in their celestial order cultivating their powers? 15. I ignored them and continued with my duties. Under my watch, Riverbend City had become a safer, more orderly place. Shopkeepers and citizens on the street greeted me by name. After dismissing my men, I found a small diner on a side street and sat down at the counter. The owner greeted me warmly and I ordered a bowl of chili. I turned around. They were still there standing just inside the doorway. There are empty seats, you know, standing must be tiring. At my words, Leo broke away from her and ran toward me. His face alight with pure unadulterated joy. She showed no outward emotion, but the perpetual frown that seemed etched between her brows had vanished. She kept her eyes downcast, hiding whatever she was feeling, and walked slowly to the booth across from me. When the owner brought my chili, I ordered 2 more bowls. I'd just taken my first spoonful when I heard Leo's voice from across the table. Dad. I paused for a fraction of a second, then went back to eating. I couldn't understand why they were here. Based on my past life, the day they left should have been the last time we ever saw each other. We were people from 2 different worlds. This was not how things were supposed to go. Their chili arrived. As Leo tried to mimic the way I was eating, he started talking, the words tumbling out of him. He told me how they'd returned to find the house covered in dust, and how they'd seen the unopened letter. In a panic, she had woken up one of the village elders in the middle of the night. The old man, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, had been confused. "Lady, what are you doing back? Did you see Ethan come back after I left?" "Ethan, haven't seen him." "Didn't he go with you to the heavens? Did you 2 have a fight?" The elder had asked before adding reassuringly, "Don't you worry. That boy is so in love with you. He'll probably come looking for you in a few days. He won't run off." But she couldn't listen anymore. She knew I had left before she did, and I had never returned. So, she and Leo began searching. By a stroke of luck, they ran into Walt, the traveling merchant, who told them he'd heard a man fitting my description in Riverbend City. And so, they had traveled 1,000 miles to find me. 16. Now, I knew the whole story, but their arrival didn't stir a single ripple within me. I already knew the choices they had made in my past life. This little deviation was nothing more than an unexpected detour. Eventually, the story would get back on track. "All right, when you're done eating, go back with your mother," I said, my voice even. "I have work to do. I'm leaving." I put some coins on the table for the meal. When I looked up, Leo was just staring at me, his spoon frozen in midair. Tears welled up in his eyes and spilled down his cheeks, plopping into his chili. I ignored him and turned to go. A hand grabbed my arm. The grip was gentle but firm. I couldn't pull away. Ethan, that familiar yet distant voice. It was softer than I remembered, with an edge of reprimand. I met her gaze. She was the first to look away, her eyes flickering down. "Can you just wait?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, let me finish what I have to say." 17. I sat back down. Her hand never left my arm, as if she were afraid I'd bolt. She started talking, a constant stream of words. She said she knew I was angry, but we were a family and we could talk things through. Leo pleaded with me too, begging me not to leave again. The truth was, I wasn't angry. From the moment I decided to leave Havenwood, I had let the past go. It was all smoke. But she didn't believe me. She thought this reunion should have been a dramatic scene, tears, embraces, joyful confessions of how much we missed each other. Not this, not me trying to walk away after 2 sentences. She thought I was punishing them, getting my revenge. Her hand trembled as it rested on my arm. Her eyes searched mine, desperate to find the answer she was looking for, but what she found there only deepened her despair. My heart was like a placid lake. My actions were my own. Her hand fell away limp. Without a moment's hesitation, I stood up and walked out. A few days later, a new neighbor moved into the house next to mine. It was her. She hadn't left. She bought the vacant cottage and moved in with Leo. One morning, as I was leaving for work, I glanced in her yard. She had arranged it to look exactly like our old home in Havenwood. It didn't bother me. I just went on with my life. But her behavior was completely different. Before, she'd hated it when I was too close, always needing her space. Now, she was the one following me. She was there when I left in the morning, there when I was on patrol, and when I stopped for breakfast. I told her to stop following me. In response, she just took 3 steps back, as if to prove she was keeping a respectable distance. Naturally, the town started to talk. A beautiful, aloof woman constantly trailing a man was bound to stir up gossip. My deputies started asking who she was. "Don't know. I'd say she's my neighbor." After a while, my deputies started suggesting I should patrol alone. Having someone constantly trailing them was, in their words, creepy. So, I started staying home more, which delighted Leo. At first, he just hopped the fence into my yard. After I scolded him, he started knocking on the front door like a civilized person. "Dad, I'm hungry for your roasted chicken, but I always cook just enough for one." Undeterred by his failure, he started showing up at mealtimes with a food basket. "Dad, Mom made a bunch of your favorite dishes. Want to try some? Her cooking has gotten so much better." I never answered the door. They say celestial beings live on dew and don't eat mortal food. She used to be like that. She couldn't cook to save her life. Apparently, that wasn't true anymore. One day, Leo was at the door again, knocking louder and louder. Finally, out of sheer frustration, I opened it. "Dad, someone's here to propose to Mom," he said. His little face creased with worry as he pulled me next door. As soon as I stepped into the yard, I heard the high-pitched voice of a matchmaker. "A lady as beautiful as yourself is bound to attract attention. As the poets say, a fair lady is a gentleman's desire." Now, Mr. Lou from the east side of town, before she could finish, her cool voice cut her off. "Tell him I'm already married and that my husband and I have a son." As she spoke, her gaze fell on me as Leo dragged me into the house. A look of undisguised relief and hope flashed in her eyes. The matchmaker looked from me to her, utterly confused. "Ma'am, are you talking about Sheriff Cole?" But Sheriff Cole has told everyone he's never been married. He's a single man. The air grew thick with silence. It took her a long moment to find her voice. "What did you say?" "Ethan said he's never been married." The matchmaker, confident in her information, pulled a small booklet from her robes. "Of course, everyone in town knows Sheriff Cole is a bachelor. This whole book is filled with the names of ladies who wish to marry him, widows, fiancés whose grooms died. You name it." Hearing this, she turned to me. "Are you serious?" The matchmaker thought the question was for her. "Absolutely. A man like the sheriff is a prime catch. Strong, handsome, and kind. I tell you, half the single women in this city dream about him at night. And if he did have a son, I imagine he'd be about this boy's age. Well, I have another appointment. I must be going." And with that, she scurried away. Her lip trembled as she turned back to me. "Ethan, why would you say you've never been married? Have you forgotten that we said our vows?" Of course, I hadn't forgotten. But what was I supposed to say? That I had a celestial wife from another dimension? That my wife left me for another man and took my son with her? Besides, she was the one who made the choice to leave. The memory of my past life was still vivid. I wasn't about to spend this life dying alone in a bed, haunted by the ghost of a family that abandoned me. Have you ever considered? I said, my voice low and hard. What it does to a man to watch his wife take their son and leave with another man. The humiliation, the torment. When you chose Julian, I thought you had married him. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her control finally shattered. Ethan, you bastard. She screamed. But the moment her anger erupted, I turned and walked away. Her desperate voice followed me. I am sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I am sorry. It wasn't that my heart was made of stone. In my last life, I spent decades wondering what I had done wrong, why she had given up on me. I drowned in regret and self-loathing. The pain I endured then was far greater than any pain she was feeling now. After that incident, I thought she would finally give up, but she didn't. She continued to follow me, as silent and persistent as ever. Thanks to the matchmaker's gossip, which spread like wildfire, I was now seen by many as a heartless man who had abandoned his family. My reputation was saved by the timely arrival of Julian Croft. He looked different, imbued with a certain celestial aura he hadn't possessed before. He must have learned a thing or two in the order. He carried a shimmering ethereal sword and spoke with a tone of profound disappointment. My dear, why do you torment yourself like this? He doesn't love you anymore. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them, she spoke to Julian with formal precision. First, you saved my life. To repay that debt, I brought you to the order. We are now even. Second, you do not have the right to call me my dear. Her voice was as cold as glacial ice. In front of him, she was once again the untouchable celestial being. Then who can call you that, Ethan? He's just a mortal, a hunter. What if he is? She retorted. He is my husband. He can call me whatever he pleases. She continued, her voice unwavering. He is my karmic trial. I once thought that by severing our ties, the trial would be over. But I was wrong. I can't sever them. I love him. I can't forget him. Julian began to tremble with rage. He couldn't force her to do anything, so he directed his fury at me. Are you satisfied now, Ethan? He snarled. You could have let her pass her trial peacefully. We could have been happy in the order. This is all because of you. Why couldn't you just disappear? I glanced at the man, his composure gone, consumed by jealousy. I was the one who was abandoned. I was the one left alone. But in his eyes, I was the one who had done everything wrong. By your logic, I said calmly. Should I have hung myself the moment you all left? Or should I have just waited in that empty house, hoping she might grace me with a visit every few decades? The selfishness of it all was breathtaking. Even celestial beings were susceptible. The reunion I had prayed for my entire last life had finally happened. It was nothing. Julian, unable to win with words, resorted to insults. I was not about to let that stand. Did cultivating your powers rot your brain? I asked. You can't tell right from wrong. I can forgive that. Maybe your parents and teachers failed you, but you continued to provoke me. Are you tired of living? Julian threw his head back and laughed. A shrill grating sound. I have learned the arts of the Emperor. I am protected by celestial wards. You think you can harm me? Do you have any idea what the difference is between a celestial and a mortal? A frigid aura emanated from her. Julian Croft. If you dare to touch a single hair on his head, I will take your life. Don't worry, my dear. Julian sneered, ignoring her. Just wait for me. Once I kill this mortal, we can. The sharp thrum of a bowstring and the vicious scream of an arrow cut him off mid-sentence. Julian looked down in disbelief, his hand flying to his throat. The feathered shaft of my arrow quivered there, blood just beginning to seep around it. I can kill a dire wolf on the verge of becoming a demon with a single arrow, I said. For a half-baked amateur like you, a second one isn't necessary. Julian's mouth opened, his hands grasping at the air. His last gaze was fixed on her, and he fell dead before he hit the ground. She let out a long sigh and turned her head away, refusing to look at his body. Her complicated gaze fell on me. He got what he deserved, she said quietly. Does that make you feel any better? The last time I'd laid a hand on Julian, I had earned the scorn and anger of my wife and son. This time I'd killed him, and the world was quiet. All that came before might as well have died yesterday. All that comes now might as well be born today. The incident with Julian cleared up any misunderstandings the townspeople had about me. Not long after, the governor himself came to see me. He told me that his daughter had been in love with me since the day I rescued her. I accepted the proposal. A wedding date was set. It was only then that she finally stopped her silent pursuit. She was taking Leo back to the order. Before they left, they came to say goodbye. Leo pouted, his eyes fixed on me with a miserable expression. Dad, I'm going to miss you. She led him to the ethereal sword they would ride on. His eyes reddened. He kept looking back, waving frantically. Dad, I'll work hard on my training. I'll come back for you as soon as I can. The day before, she had come to my house one last time. Ethan, it was all my fault. Everything. I failed as a wife. It's all right if you can't forgive me, she had said, her voice strained. But our son is still young. He doesn't fully understand right from wrong. The chance to come here and find you. He earned it by fighting with everything he had in the Order's trials. Leo is your son, too. I'm begging you. She bowed her head low. It struck me then how much she had humbled herself before me. I agreed. I made a pact with Leo. When he became a master of his arts, we could be a family again. That was the reason for the scene today. Before leaving, she pulled a small, ornate box from her sleeve. Inside, nestled on a bed of silk, was a single luminous pill. It glowed with a soft light and a fragrant aroma filled the air. It was clearly an object of immense value. This is an elixir of ages. It will grant you a greatly extended lifespan. I don't need it. I looked directly at her pale, beautiful face and felt nothing. Mortals are born, they live, and they die. It's the natural way. I'm no different. She wouldn't give up. She grabbed my hand, her own trembling, and pressed the pill into my palm. Think of it as a wedding gift. Please, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I wish you happiness in your new marriage. The things I failed to do, I hope she can do them for you. Take care of yourself. Her lips trembled as she spoke, each word making her eyes a little redder, until finally her voice broke. Tears streamed down her face. It was the first time I had ever seen her cry. It was also the last. We never saw each other again. I married the governor's daughter. Several years later, we had a daughter of our own. We named her Sophie. Sophie was a brilliant child born with a natural affinity for the celestial arts. A perfect candidate for cultivation. But when emissaries from the Emperor came to recruit her, she refused without a moment's hesitation. What's so great about that? Living for a few extra years? I just want to stay here with my mom and dad. Years later, another visitor from the Order arrived. Assuming they were there to try and recruit Sophie again, I told the servants to send them away. But in a blink, a figure appeared before me. Dad. I looked at the young man standing before me. It was Leo, taller and more mature, but unmistakably him. He still favored his mother in looks. Dad, I completed my training. During my meditations, I was granted a glimpse into the threads of fate, our past life. I knew what he was going to say. My silence was all the answer he needed. He dropped to his knees, his body heavy with remorse. Dad, Mom passed away. After she brought me back to the Order, she returned to our old house in Havenwood. She told me she never passed her karmic trial because she never wanted to. This son has come today on behalf of my mother and myself to tell you we are sorry. Leo bowed his head to the floor 3 times. Before he left, I gave him the elixir of ages. My hair was now graying at the temples, but my home was filled with love. I wanted nothing more than to grow old with my wife and watch my daughter grow up and find her own happiness. Sometime later, I went back to Havenwood one last time. There was a single quiet grave there, the burial place of my past, a memorial to a love lost to regret. The world is full of goodbyes that are never said.